Because you're creepy. That's why girls don't like you. Because you're creepy. You are a creepy person. And I can only imagine how creepy you were back then. Because you're creepy now. Okay. So Turkey Tom came out with this video, Mrgirl, YouTube's creepiest intellectual. I am so glad Turkey Tom put this video out. I heard the video is good. And the reason why I heard the video was good, well, not the reason why, but how I know the video is good, because Chris Nark messaged me. He had watched the video, and he messaged me. And he was like, Xylie, I didn't know, it was a particular thing in this video. I didn't know that about Mrgirl. And I was like, what do you mean you didn't know that about Mrgirl? What? You didn't pay attention. He was like, oh my God. I was like, yeah, oh my God. Yeah, you didn't know about that? So it held his attention. All right. If Chris Nark was able to sit through the damn video, it must be good.
Cuties was a Netflix production that was widely criticized for its inappropriate depictions of underage actors, to put it mildly. Amidst all of the backlash, however, one man disagreed.
This film does try to make you sexually aroused by 11-year-olds. I'll say it's not bad at it.
Max Carson, or Mrgirl as he's known online, was attacked by the internet at large for his review. But what they...
Okay, and during this video, when we get to a particular part that they talk about, I'm going to give you my theory about Mrgirl, and everybody thinks well, not everybody thinks I'm crazy. Some people think I'm crazy, but...
he didn't know was that his opinion on Cuties was just the tip of the iceberg. It's a story that involves dolls, school shooters, domestic abuse, diss tracks, and psychological warfare, all from a man that fully believes, deep down, we're all exactly the same.
Because he wants to be a cult leader!
Long before Max's disturbing opinions became known online, he was already a certifiably disturbed person, to say the least. He recalls reading books on how to pleasure women when he was just 7 or 8 years old, as well as teaching all of his friends how to crank it in middle school. For this kind of behavior to manifest that early, you'd think there was some kind of dysfunctional parenting involved in his upbringing. And sure enough, there's information pointing to that. His father, a psychologist who was, at some point, hired as an expert witness on child mistreatment,
Wait, that's his dad? Oh, damn. Okay.
Actually told Max that he wanted to strangle him. Due to his father hating him, he ended up living with his mother, which led to another set of issues entirely. He's claimed multiple times that his mom was attracted to him.
And it felt like she was constantly making little comments or jokes, or insisting on having sexual conversations with me, touching me in ways that I was uncomfortable with. I wanted to recoil from her. Like being in the car, I would be pressed against the door, never wanted to hug her. I would feel like I would want to wash it off if she touched me, if she looked at me, just constantly feeling violated.
He then
okay, listen. I need y'all to put a pin in that. Just put a pin on how he talks about his mother. Put a pin in it because it backs up what I think. Okay? It really backs up what I think.
Wash it off if she touched me, if she looked at me, just constantly feeling violated.
He then goes on to explain that when he was 10 years old, his mother was married to another woman and that they both teamed up against him, constantly nitpicking everything he did and accusing him of being a sexist. According to him, this happened anytime he displayed slightly aggressive behavior, which she eventually started doing on purpose just to get a rise out of him. When his father told him his mother might just not like him, Max decided to confront his mom about it, and she responded by telling him he needed to leave the house and go live with his dad. Following that situation, the family went to see 2 different therapists, one of whom took her side, and another who met with Max in private, and told him that he was probably right and his mom disliked him. As a result, Max stopped talking to his mom for 1.5 years until they happened to see each other on the street and developed a polite but distant relationship. When he was 14, his mother told him that when people have intercourse, women get hurt, which gave him a strong sense of guilt. As a result, whenever he would spank the monkey while thinking about someone, he felt that he had to tell them afterwards to make it right. When he did it to people he couldn't talk to, like women in adult movies, he resorted to kissing the screen as a way to show affection toward them. This also made it so that he couldn't have a relationship for a very long time.
Max Carson, aka Mrgirl, is a very, very, very disturbed person.
Eventually, when Max was in college, he started having questions about himself. He suspected that his inability to have healthy relationships with women was a result of his unresolved trauma with his mother, so he decided to send her an email explaining how he felt about her since she kicked him out. She responded, saying that part of the reason she kicked him out was that she was attracted to him and afraid that she was going to act on it. When he told the rest of the family about what she'd said in an email, none of them believed it, and they all excused it as her misspeaking or simply trying to be provocative, which strongly contributed to him cutting ties with his entire family. In order to appropriately cover his college years and the things he got up to, we have to contextualize by delving deeper into his high school years. Max describes the city he lived in as extremely progressive, to the point that his parents were divorced, his mother came out as lesbian, his mom's wife picked him up from school, and no one ever made fun of him for it. To put it...
Okay, so what we've learned so far is Max would say things and do things purposely for the aggression. Okay? And he would literally, like, it's almost like he feeds off that negativity. All right? That's pretty much the first part that we watched. That's pretty much it. He feeds off the negativity.
Simply, he grew up in a very tolerant and progressive environment, with his school shutting down plays that contained Latin American stereotypes, but having no issue with another play being put on at the school called The Vagina Monologues. Because of this, Max felt that he could, and should, express himself, and so he asked the editor-in-chief of the school's newspaper if he could write for it. The editor refused outright, but told him that he should start his own paper, which he eventually did. In 2001, Max began a newsletter titled The Crux, but he wasn't allowed to distribute it the regular way by simply placing it next to the rest of the newsletters and school papers. You see, the school staff didn't really like what he had to say, so they threw stacks of it into the trash whenever they caught it lying around, prompting Max to begin handing it out during lunch. And even then, they continued trying to stem its distribution by whatever means they had. But this might lead you to wonder, what was so bad about his newsletter that the entire school was adamantly trying to stop other students from even reading it? Well, within the first 3 issues, the topics he covered were more mundane, with topics like fluorescent lights making him hate himself and everyone else, and his support of the normalization of adult films, which was par for the course for the school. But he also covered more inflammatory things, like his review of a Cambodian New Year celebration, where an Asian woman gave a speech denouncing the objectification of Asian women. In his newsletter, he wrote, "When I got to listen to the Asian woman's speech, I wished I were on a different planet. People seem to have this crazy idea that if you tell someone not to be racist, sexist, or whateverist, they'll see the light you've directed them to, and you'll have cleansed their souls. Secondly, was it necessary to wear such a short skirt? I don't want to listen to a speech about objectifying Asian women who don't want to be objectified by someone who has just objectified herself."
I can't stand this man. He is a hot take machine. And he's one of the few people on the internet that really gets under my skin. Like, truly gets under my skin.
Also, if I'm not mistaken, wasn't one of the stereotypes that was listed in the speech that Asian women like to have intercourse? Perhaps I misunderstood this my whole life, but don't most people like it? And if Asian women really don't like it, then how come there are so many Asians? However innocuous this ultimately is for a teenage guy to write, you can see how a school teacher could take issue with it. But this little blurb pales in comparison to the future issues. In the 4th installment, Max writes about how people who talk too much about how important it is to fight against prejudice and other issues are simply interested in themselves, saying, usually these people will change the topic to something upsetting, and then they'll overflow with empathy for whomever you're talking about. You'll see that they're so sophisticated that the very mention of racism makes them want to cry for all the lynch victims they used to know. It's at times like this I wish that empathy were a liquid so that these people could choke on it. He closed this issue off with one question. If you could eliminate any race, what race would you eliminate? Well, this was enough to get...
Jesus Christ. I can't stand this guy. Zeke for 5. He kind of got the Shadman thing going on where people for whatever reason would come out of the woodwork to defend his freedom of speech. True, Zeke. True.
Get him in hot water. It was issue 5 that earned him a week-long suspension due to sexual harassment and racism, according to the school. Now, as much as Max became a condemned person later on, he was actually kind of right in this instance, since what he actually wrote was a satire about his principal, Mr. Myers, an admitted child molester who was accused by 28 different people over the course of 50 years. According to Max, there was an outpouring of support from students and school staff to let Mr. Myers keep his job. For context, he hadn't suffered any legal repercussions for his crimes due to the statute of limitations. He did eventually get arrested and convicted in 2023, not for molesting kids, but instead for insurance fraud and theft, although he was sentenced to 2 years of probation and is currently free. In his newsletter, Max wrote, "My response to Mr. Myers' controversial hobby of children, I'm going to break up with him. And had I known he was a child molester, I never would have gone out with him in the first place." He then went on to attack the people who supported him and those who were unwilling to press charges or contact social services over the allegations they'd received. For reasons beyond my understanding, he immediately segues into race relations, saying, "Black people have an unfair advantage over the other non-white races. They have a well-respected representative. The closest thing that Latin American people have to Martin Luther King Jr. is the Taco Bell Chihuahua."
Mrgirl literally says things to piss people off on purpose. Literally. That's all he does. He's like an internet troll to a point. He has a lot of troll qualities about him. But here's the thing. You know how, like, people say there's always a truth behind a joke? There's always some kind of truth. Even no matter how small, there's always some kind of truth behind a joke. Well, I feel that way about trolls always. There's some kind of truth behind a troll. And I think that's what Mrgirl works off of.
However funny that is as a statement, it was actually just a setup for him to go on another rant about the Cambodian New Year celebration, which he punctuated by saying that Cambodian elementary schools sell hand grenades for $1.50, and by complaining that his school's attempts to teach about diversity were useless. Max said the superintendent told him that his paper was an act of sexual harassment against the principal, again, the confessed predator, and then referred him to the dean of students, a very light-skinned black woman who proceeded to tell Max he couldn't know anything about racism because he was white. Additionally, Max's father was informed by the guidance counselor that some Puerto Rican students were planning to him when he was going home, and even after the issue was clarified and Max was exonerated of being racist, he became so scared and paranoid that he refused to use public urinals for fear of an attack. This was permanent, by the way. He claims he's still unable to use urinals to this day.
Welcome to Earth for $1.99. Oh no, it's Dollar Tree Vosh, wood chipper. No, I wouldn't put him and Vosh in the same category, actually. I actually would not put him and Vosh in the same category. I think Mrgirl is literally on a category of his own. Honestly. I really, really do.
ACLU was then contacted, and once they claimed that the school was suppressing Max's freedom of speech, his suspension was lifted, and his newsletter was allowed to be properly distributed, at least for a while. A few issues later, it got him in trouble once again, this time for obscenity. And this one is more understandable since he gave a detailed description of an adult video and wrote half a page about how he was gay for his friend and suggested he wanted his friend to treat him like Mr. Myers treated underage boys. Not exactly in great taste, but still, it did fall under the umbrella of freedom of speech, and Max's suspension was once again lifted. But not—
Okay. You want to know who to compare Mrgirl to in a way? Onision. And I'm going to tell you why. Mrgirl knows how to walk a line, and it looks like he should cross it, but he doesn't exactly cross it until later on. At this point, that's what he was doing. He was walking a line, and he doesn't necessarily cross that line, but it looks like he has, but he hasn't really. Onision did the same thing.
Not before they contacted his dad and brought him into the school. The school expected he would be pretty mad at Max, but instead his father staged a protest, called the teacher a Nazi, and refused to leave the school until the police arrived. Despite how little they had in the way of success when trying to shut Max up, they continued trying, as he was suspended 2 more times in the same year, once for writing about how he whacked it, which included a tutorial for girls, by the way, and another time for writing—
Jesus Christ. I'm sorry. I can't. Jesus Christ. What? What? I didn't know about this part.
Despite how little they had in the way of success when trying to shut Max up, they continued trying, as he was suspended 2 more times in the same year, once for writing about how he whacked it, which included a tutorial for girls, by the way.
No! What? Oh, God, no! Holy shit, bro. I mean, true. Well, at least he's an equal opportunity gooner. True. True. Oh, dear God. I don't know if the tutorial was accurate, and I don't want to find out, okay? Thank you. I'm not reading that shit.
And another time for writing F you mom at the end of the issue. Like the other ones, these suspensions were also lifted, and he continued to write new issues of The Crux until he graduated, now more invested than ever in his writings. With high school done, it was time for Max to go to big boy school, and he would start off at Colorado State, during which he was able to get a position as a columnist on one of the school's papers. However, his second article there got him in a little bit of trouble because he suggested that the school have a female football team that wore bikinis while they played so that he could ogle at them, which got him fired. A couple of years later, long after he'd left the CSU, he enrolled in the University of Colorado at Boulder, where, after he was rejected by every school paper, he decided to once again start publishing his own newsletter, The Yeti, the very first issue of which began with the following passage. I have a new theory about why girls don't like me. It's a bit more sophisticated than my previous
Because you're creepy. That's why girls don't like you. Because you're creepy. You are a creepy person, and I can only imagine how creepy you were back then. Because you're creepy now. Bruh.
Attempts at explaining this phenomenon, which ran along the lines of, girls don't like me because they're stupid, or girls don't like me because they can't understand that leg humping is just my way of saying hi. While these remain valid points to consider, I think my new theory really hits the nail on the head. Girls don't like me because I make them think. This is immediately followed by
Yeah,
Max recounting
okay.
an experience he had where two girls he was friends with became entranced with a guy who didn't engage with them intellectually and instead talked about himself. He explained this phenomenon, saying, "In a world where women are powerless objects, it's hard to talk to me, a smart, attractive, funny, sensitive, attentive, honest guy who pushes girls to think and asks them questions that are hard to answer." The second issue was mostly about how he was scared of black people because he instinctively imagined they'd all be constantly angry over racism, and he also stated he couldn't talk to them because he couldn't understand ebonics. He juxtaposed
Bruh. Oh my God. He just likes to flame people. He likes to flame people. That's what he likes to do. He wants to be that controversial figure. And you can obviously see it. He's done it since childhood and young adult. He likes to flame people. He's a big ass troll.
this to make a larger point about how indoctrinating kids into identifying themselves with either slaves or the slave masters due to their race was bad. But still, this was very much the same format and concept as The Crux, which is to say that it got under people's skin a lot. And the third issue was also pretty interesting. It's written as a satire about women being unable to orgasm, which got him called into the Vice Chancellor's office, and also earned him a piece in the Colorado Daily covering his supposed sexism. Once again, the ACLU intervened, and nothing happened to Max. However,
and we're starting to get into my point. Now we're going to start getting into my point about him, but I can't fully divulge it yet because we haven't hit that part of the video. But, yeah, I think that's his biggest problem. Listen, I joke about me being a misogynist. All right, I joke about it all the time. Y'all see me go on Now Recording and talk with them, and those guys are always making women jokes and about me being a misogynist, or Beavers will throw out his misogynist takes. Okay, I very rarely bring up a misogynist point to be serious. When I am serious, you will know when I'm calling somebody a misogynist, I actually mean it. All right? When it comes to Mrgirl, I actually mean it when I call him a misogynist. I 1000% mean it. And if you want examples, you can watch my live streams, I guess. Because I point out how he treats women on panels a little bit differently than men, especially when they make him mad. All right, let's go back a little bit. All right, here we go.
Sexism. Once again, the ACLU intervened, and nothing happened to Max. However, from that point forward, the college staff hated him and were just waiting for an opportunity to exact revenge. For a while, he continued to publish his newsletters unbothered, which gave way to multiple bangers, like a tutorial on how to be a good white ally, which included the phrase, "Every time a white person laughs, a black person cries."
Oh, Jesus Christ. Oh, my God. Bruh. Bruh.
Another highlight is his diatribe against fat girls, pushing it to the extreme and actively promoting anorexia to make a point about appearance standards. However offensive on the surface level, the actual beliefs that Max expressed through his writing were very much in line with feminism, racial equality, and other beliefs that permeate college campuses. The only difference is that Max did his best to espouse these beliefs in the most sarcastic, insane way possible to get people mad at him.
He's a troll. He's a big-ass troll, and this is what we're seeing with his early life. He was a troll. But, again, like I say, behind every troll, there is a bit of truth. And I think that's where the misogyny comes to play. I really do. That is my personal belief.
In an interview conducted with him at the time, he made this perfectly clear.
I think there's a lot of social issues out there, important things that people aren't talking about, like racism and sexism and homophobia and things like that, that I feel like would be better addressed in a humorous manner than by preachy, finger shakers.
Well, don't you feel sometimes that people will take that satirical manner in a negative light instead of doing something positive for the cause?
Yeah, I mean, it's a concern of mine. I don't know. I don't think that reading my newsletter is going to convert someone who wasn't a racist to being a racist, or is going to make someone who has no prejudice whatsoever to suddenly being like, wow, I do hate women.
He made it clear time and time again that he was quite left-leaning politically, but just loved being provocative, which deeply irritated the college staff. But it all came to a head in April of 2007, when the Virginia Tech shooting happened.
It is an incredibly busy time here in this newsroom as we are all pulling together to cover what is turning out to be the deadliest campus shooting in U.S. history. At this afternoon...
On the 16th of April, undergraduate Sung Hui Cho went on a shooting rampage, killing 32 people and injuring 17 others. The very next day, Max attended a women's studies class that focused on the issues of black black women. During which, while everyone else lamented what happened in Virginia, someone said, "I can't imagine shooting 32 people," which prompted Max to respond, "Anyone who says they've never thought about shooting 32 people is lying." He then went on to explain his statement, supposedly specifying that given how generally obsessed people are with violence, especially when they're kids and teenagers, and given how terrible the conditions are in public schools, it made sense for that to come up as a thought. But he clarified he did not intend it as a threat. Despite the clarification, he was summoned to the Chancellor's office and had to rehash his explanation once again. But as soon as he was about to walk out, he was met by 2 police officers. Max claims that at that moment, he realized that the administration was exacting its revenge, and they were—
Okay, I'm gonna be honest. Now, I can't believe I'm doing this, but I gotta be honest, alright? I don't see what he said as a threat. It was an inappropriate, like, joke or a thought, but I think they went a little bit too far by calling the cops on him. You know? Yeah, it was an argument for argument's sake, yeah. Because he's a troll. He's a troll. You know, I don't see that comment. Listen, I can't stand the man. I really can't stand the man. Every time he's gotten deplatformed off of something, I'm not sitting there fighting for him. I'm like, oh well, and I walk away, right? But I still don't see that comment as a threat. You know, it's a bit unhinged, but I don't see it as a threat.
Reported him to the police as if he made a genuine threat. He was then questioned by the cops, excerpts of which he eventually uploaded to YouTube.
So just to start off with, why do you think you're here?
I think I'm here because some of my classmates and my professor became uncomfortable during a conversation we had in class today.
In his recounting of this whole process, he says he spent a night in jail, during which they had the TV on, which allowed him to watch CNN report on his arrest live on TV as if he were a Virginia Tech copycat shooter who was caught early. It's pretty easy to find news reports about Max from this time, some of them focusing exclusively on his unfortunate quote and painting him as a potential shooter, others including information about his newsletter and the crazy things he wrote in his issues. Later on, he found that unlike what the news report said, it wasn't his teachers or students who felt threatened by him that called the cops. It was the head of the Women's Studies department, who, upon hearing of his arrest, cheered, saying, "We got his ass."
Okay, so this is what happens when you troll too much. When you troll to the point that people believe the words that you are putting out there is how you really feel, this is the result from that. You know what I mean? Look at all the unhinged shit that he was saying in the newsletters and the papers and stuff like that. Look at all the unhinged shit he was saying. They just look for an excuse to get you when you're constantly saying unhinged shit like that.
As soon as his case hit the news, 4 ACLU-affiliated lawyers jumped on the opportunity to represent him for free due to how much attention the situation got from national news, which is not surprising considering how soon it was after Virginia Tech. His dad bailed him out, Max refused to plead guilty, and ultimately, he was offered deferred prosecution, meaning the charges against him would get dropped if he simply committed no other crimes for a year, which he gladly agreed to. While Max claims that all of this was done with the intent of permanently stifling his ambitions with expressing his unorthodox perspective, it did quite the opposite. Now, the faculty advisor for another school paper became a fan of his work and offered him the position of opinion editor, which he happily accepted, partly because he genuinely wanted the job, and partly because he wanted to do a little trolling. The first instance of his shenanigans was to, as he put it, publish a moderately racist essay about how Latin Americans should speak better English. Surprisingly, he got away with this, so he proceeded to up the ante. He submitted one of his own articles titled, "If it's war the Asians want, it's war they'll get." I don't know why he has so much smoke with the Asians, honestly. I don't.
Listen, apparently he doesn't like Asians or Latinos. Okay? Apparently he's got a problem with Asians and Latinos, which is absolutely fine. I'm Puerto Rican, let's go. We can do this. Just saying.
I don't get it. His article was actually covered by the local news.
The article, written by student Max Carson, details his hate for Asians and poses that they be subjected to phases of absurd tasks. For example, Phase 1 suggested catching Asians with large butterfly nets and dragging them into apartments for further phases, which include forced binge drinking, useless games, and house redecorating.
This article essentially parodied the concept of immigrants integrating into another culture, but regardless, it instantly became the most read article in the paper of all time, and all of his social media platforms and email accounts were flooded with death threats from people who thought he was serious about wanting war with Asian people. The paper was shut down, and the Asian students held a protest against anti-Asian prejudice, which Max actually attended, and he took a picture with them, much to their surprise.
Jesus Christ. This is, okay, again, he's a troll.
Against anti-Asian prejudice, which Max actually...
Look, he took a picture with them. He was actually part of the protest. Okay, so you're looking at Mrgirl going, he's just a shitter, right? He's a shitter. And that's exactly how it's painting him. He was a shitter. And I get that. I 100% get that.
actually attended and he took a picture with them, much to their surprise. Another writing project from this period is a blog titled Shame Lane, which is no longer accessible. However, we know from articles written about it that it mostly focused on topics around intercourse, as well as more candid diary entry-like windows into Max's personal life at the time. He recounts temporarily working as a barista, but having to quit because he stared at women too much. Then he got a job at a YMCA in San Francisco and found himself a girlfriend, although they broke up shortly after they moved in together, and the breakup was so bad that the police were called on them by the neighbors, although he doesn't specify here what exactly he meant by so bad. However, he has made a video talking about an instance where the police came during one of his breakups, which I assume is this one, unless it's happened multiple times, which is even worse.
I grabbed her wrist. She screamed for me to stop, and then, after that first time, a few weeks later, I grabbed her arms because she wasn't listening to me or something. And I grabbed them really hard, and afterwards she showed me bruises on her arms. A little bit after that, I just said, okay, that was so loud that the neighbors are going to call cops. And before they get here, I need you to put on a long sleeve shirt so they don't see the bruises on your arms. Because if they do, I'm going to spend the night in jail, 100%.
At one point, Max wrote a blog entry celebrating the number of teenage girls who friended him on Facebook, saying, "The fact that teenage girls read this doesn't turn me on. However, it does make me feel happy. I like the idea that after a long, boring day of teachers narrowing their eyes at the slightest hint of your sexuality, of teenage boys not caring, thinking about how you turn on, and of your fathers cringing at the idea of you ever having intercourse, you can come to Shame Lane and be in the company of people who accept and even encourage your sickest thoughts." That preface where he says,
and this is where we start to take a turn. This is where we start to take a turn. I think one of the biggest problems, on top of the problem I have with him, I think one of the biggest problems about Max is he's too much of a try-hard troll. To the point where it starts to get creepy and it starts to get very, very, very uncomfortable.
As it doesn't turn him on, is doing a lot of heavy lifting here. Up until this point, Max was troubled and controversial for sure, but not to the point where he became genuinely evil. Every potentially despicable thing he wrote in his papers always had a twist to it so that it redeemed his true intentions. And Max always managed to find an audience, and based on the things he said in his newsletter, he seemingly always had friends and even girlfriends. However, during the time between his college years and the creation of his YouTube channel, something changed, and he really jumped the shark from writing things that could be misconstrued as inappropriate to actually engaging in things that don't really bode well to the average person, to say the least. For example, in 2014, he posed nude at actress Olivia Wilde's baby shower. This, in and of itself, is just weird, but he clarified in a Reddit post from a few years later that the purpose of him being naked was for the people attending the baby shower to do an anatomical drawing of him. However, in other posts in the same thread, he admits to being an exhibitionist and pervert who was, at least at the time, doing this kind of gig as a job.
I found a company that rents out male models and art instructors to bachelorette parties. So they were drawing him. Okay, I'm gonna be honest, I don't care about that part. He posed naked to be drawn. I mean, that shit happens all the time. I don't care about that part.
Worse yet is the fact that he told a story about doing it in a classroom where the female teacher started flirting with him to the point that he got an erection. He specified that this happened in front of high school kids and that he regularly posed naked for teenagers between 15 and 18 years old.
Okay, I do care about that part though. What? Wait, what?
Told a story about doing it in a classroom where the female teacher started flirting with him to the point that he got an erection. He specified that this happened in front of high school kids and that he regularly posed naked for teenagers between 15 and 18 years old.
Okay, that's gotta be a lie. No, he's got to be lying. I'm sorry. That's gotta be a lie. I do not believe that. I don't believe that any art class would have an adult male naked for them to draw with students between the ages of 15 and 18, like high school students. I don't believe it. Yeah, so those kind of art classes would be 18 plus. Yeah, exactly. Welcome to Earth. For $1.99, what effing high school does that? Exactly. I don't believe it. I do not believe that statement. And if it did happen, then that, whatever art school that was, or whatever class that was, it needs to be shut down immediately.
This happened in front of high school kids and that he regularly posed naked for teenagers between 15 and 18 years old. In 2016, court records showed that a woman named Hannah was married to Max and filed for divorce. Though she seems to have made an effort to stay out of the spotlight insofar as Max's story, and given she's not that pivotal as a part of it, I won't go in depth here. In 2017, he started a gaming channel called Mrgirl Gaming, which, as far as I know, is the first instance of that alias being used. However, that only lasted for a while, as he eventually returned to his true passion, controversial political commentary.
Oh God, here we go.
As the anti-SJW community and BreadTube content started peaking in popularity, Max saw it as an opportunity to once again resurge as a cultural analyst. But this time around, he was less interested in being provocative in an intellectual sense, and more so in hamming it up for shock value. One of his supposedly brilliant think pieces was a half-hour-long video of him naked and cranking it, which is still up on the hub to this day. Another low light of this period was a Reddit post he made to the unpopular opinion subreddit with the title, "PDF-philia is a spectrum, and we are all on it." With the title...
Okay, so that's where this art comes in with Mrgirl. And this is how a lot of people think of Mrgirl, because of his takes and what he says about, like, pedos and underage girls and stuff like that. This is where a lot of people get their takes about Mrgirl.
Title like that, it leaves very little to the imagination regarding what kind of things he'll be saying. Just a few lines in, he drops this gem. Everyone is from time to time attracted to minors. Bad Baby, Britney Spears, etc. Their popularity is a testament to that. I guess the glaring missing piece in his rationale here is that those people were primarily popular amongst other teenagers, but regardless, I don't think he cared too much about the details. Another thing he failed to account for here is the fact that he spent over a decade of his life knowing his mother was attracted to him, going as far as to say he felt violated by her, even if she didn't act on it. Additionally, he attended a school where the principal was a certified molester. With these things in mind, it's not surprising that he thought about this stuff more than the average person, but going from that to confidently claiming every person is on the spectrum seems like he's attempting to make himself feel more normal by accusing everyone else of being like him. At one point,
he does have a tendency to do that when he gets in conversation. For a while there, I don't know what he's doing now because I stopped logging him after the Destiny manifesto. I stopped caring. But it always seems like when he got into a confrontation with someone on a stream, he would always try to bring them into his thought process about being about like pedos and underage girls and stuff like that.
He said, "I also think everyone is attracted to prepubescent children from time to time." Though he reinforced multiple times that he thought acting on those urges should always be illegal, he simultaneously reminded everyone that fantasizing about it was legal. The thing about this is fantasizing about these things contributes to eventually doing them, hence people's hangups about it. Instead of acknowledging people's objections to his thread, he simply focused on what was legal or not, ignoring anything that undercut his point. This was just one in the unfortunately extensive list of things that heavily suggested Max was a creep. Within a year of this thread, he went from a relatively obscure edgelord to essentially front-page news on YouTube when he released a review of the movie Cuties.
Oh my God. And you know what? What Tom is about to talk about is literally the reason why Mrgirl got noticed by everybody else on YouTube. This right here, this exact video right here, his video on Cuties, is the reason why he got noticed by everybody in commentary. He got noticed by people on Twitch poll and BreadTube. This is why. It's what literally put him on the map with us. Yeah, it launched his debate pedo arc. Yes, Austin. 100%.
Obscure edgelord to essentially front-page news on YouTube when he released a review of the movie Cuties.
I'll say, it's not bad at it.
For context, Cuties is a Netflix-produced movie that featured extremely inappropriate scenes of multiple 11-year-olds dancing in short shorts. Once it was released, it was instantly met with extreme disapproval from everyone since it essentially contained the exploitation of children.
Hey, Abba and Preach, let's go!
They tried to salvage the movie's PR in a dozen different ways, often by saying that the movie was mismarketed by Netflix and that it was actually against the exploitation. This point was also attached to the claim that the backlash came from Western audiences who were too dumb and chauvinistic to get it, since the movie was made by a Muslim woman. However, none of these copes remotely do justice to the fact that the movie explicitly depicts the exploitation of minors and frames it as something liberating by juxtaposing it against strict Islamic values. Regardless of how obviously terrible this was, some YouTube pseudo-intellectuals decided to make it their hill to die on. One of them was Sneeko, who's someone I've covered in another video.
This one of the movies is going to age well.
Oh, no. You see, the child, it was just...
Another rage baiter. Sneeko is another rage baiter. Mrgirl, we've already established, Mrgirl is also a rage baiter. Listen, work with me when I get to my point. You just gotta work with me, alright? He is a rage baiter.
Just a goof. It was just for laughs, you know? Just, why aren't you laughing?
And once he saw this commotion taking place, Max decided it was a prime opportunity for him to give his 2 cents. In his video about it, he made a series of statements that sounded seriously incriminating.
But, yeah, as far as, like, sexy music videos go, it's not bad. They're pretty hot. And, you know, you can say whatever you want about me. It's not my fault. I didn't make them do that. They did that. That's the point. That's the whole point of the movie, is that you're supposed to be sitting there thinking,
look at the blonde one. You're supposed to be sitting there holding these two thoughts in your head, and one that these are kids, and the other that they're hot.
In another video...
Yes, that is what he said in his video. Yes, that's what he said. How do you think people reacted to that? Especially the commentary community. Now, the one thing that the commentary community cannot stop talking about is pedos. Okay? So how do you think the commentary community took that statement? Yeah, they didn't take it very well.
Of his from the same time, he planned to record himself cranking it to the movie, but didn't because his editor wouldn't edit it. As you can probably imagine, this really did not go well whatsoever. In September 2020, Moist Critical covered the controversy surrounding the movie. After having thoroughly denounced it, he addressed Mrgirl's video on it, highlighting how downright creepy his take on it was.
That's the message that people are walking away from the movie with. Pedophiles with the biggest smile on their face, pumping their fists in the air. Thanks, Netflix. Just easily accessible and softcore child. It's unbelievable. You can't defend this movie, and if you're defending this movie, you haven't seen it, and if you have seen it and are defending it, you might be a pedophile. It's as simple as that.
Though Max's video was already getting some traction on its own, Critical's mention of him sent it into the stratosphere, turning him into the object of hundreds of thousands of people's hatred overnight. And like any lolcow worth his salt, he instantly got an invitation from Ethan Ralph to the kill stream to reiterate and clarify his thoughts on the movie. Surprisingly, this actually got him to slightly walk back his stance, as it appears Andy Worski informed him that 5,000 girls auditioned for the kids' parts, meaning whoever did the movie's casting watched 5,000 kids dance in order to pick who would be in it. This was shocking enough that Max decided that Netflix should probably take down the movie. However, dozens of posts of his solidify that he still thought it was a good movie, and there was nothing wrong with him having enjoyed watching it or even feeling arousal from it. Soon after, he got his own thread on Kiwi Farms, prompting him to state that neo-Nazis were doxing him.
You know Kiwi Farms picked that up. You know Kiwi Farms picked that up quick. After making that statement about the girls in the movie, you know they picked it up. Because they don't play with that shit either.
Which eventually progressed to him saying that the 5,000 people who negatively commented on his video were also all Nazis. Ultimately, he never fully retracted his statements about the movie or changed his mind about its contents. Instead, he capitalized on his infamy as much as he could by trying his best to get the attention of pundits like Steven Crowder.
And after seeing what's happening with Vox getting Steven Crowder's channel demonetized, I decided to repost this video with a new introduction to stand in solidarity with Steven. Censorship is an increasingly huge problem, and huge corporations like YouTube or the government or whoever should not be reaching into my channel's pants without my consent and pulling videos out. You can call me anything you want if it makes you feel better. You can spit on me, you can spit in my mouth, you can pull my hair, you know, whatever you need to do.
I'll have to cover a lot of this up with editing, but if you didn't realize what he did there, he took all of his clothes off between the shots. I guess to make fun of Steven Crowder for being homophobic or something. 1 month later, Max came back with a video covering all the controversies he'd been in since high school, claiming that he'd simply been misunderstood in every single case. While this video is pretty superficial in the point that it makes, it's quite telling that he sees the cutie situation as just another instance of people unfairly targeting him. And it's even more telling that, to this day, he couldn't move past the issues he had with the authorities a decade prior. Like an edgy Peter Pan, developmentally stunted and frozen in his edgelord phase. In December of 2020, Max got banned from YouTube, which did very little to make him actually—
Oh darn! Oh man! He got banned from YouTube. Oh, I don't think anyone should be deplatformed. Oh no! He shouldn't have got deplatformed. What a horrible thing. Okay, there, I said it.
change his content. And so as a result, when his channel was eventually reinstated on YouTube, he went right back to usual. However out of touch he was with his own situation, it did give way to plenty of extremely entertaining moments, such as his Eminem parody song about his controversy. 'Cause I'm a pedophile! He was basking in the attention. Negative—
Oh, that song. Jesus. I remember Tipster, I did a live stream, and Tipster came up and was talking to me. I think it was one of my chill streams. I think. Or it was a stream that was going to go to members only anyway. And he showed me this music video, and I was like, oh my God.
Or otherwise, just as he did in every other instance when he got into trouble. It was evident that Max was clinging to his 15 minutes of fame since he continued to make increasingly unhinged rehashes of it.
Yep.
You're playing Minecraft in a cave looking for diamonds.
Okay, so, it's, okay. You know how, alright, so those of you who've been watching Lil Cow Live lately, alright, Keem kept telling Grace, the problem is y'all trolled with the incest thing too much. Alright? What I think Mr. Girl did was he took he did the cuties thing for attention. Obviously, you don't do videos without wanting attention. And it took off. And everybody was putting him on his live streams, having conversations about what he said, doing videos about what he said, and he ran with it. He made a music video calling himself a pedophile, okay? He ran with it. So everybody now has it in their head that he is a pedo because he started trolling on what people said.
That's funny. I'm in the same cave looking for minors.
Albeit, they did continue to be entertaining and successful, accruing millions of views and streams, and even attaining meme status when it got uploaded with this picture of Wapple. However, once you look beyond them, very little substance can be found in what Max is trying to push, leaving him permanently relegated to the outskirts of BreadTube. And make no mistake, they all hate him.
Can't even play hopscotch without popping a rager.
He was banned 2 more times, once...
Okay, did you notice what Tom just did there?
And make no mistake, they all hate him.
They hated him too. Make no mistake, they all hate him. They hated him too. Yes, we hate him also.
Can't even play hopscotch without popping a rager.
He was banned 2 more times, once for uploading a video that had a Pornhub in the title, and another time for featuring a clip from a movie that depicted explicit violence, although his channel did come back in both cases. The last ban was a result of a mass flagging campaign from followers of Nick Fuentes after a series of debates between Max and Destiny about the latter's association with Nick, whom Max called a white supremacist. Throughout 2021 and 2022, Destiny and Max grew closer, which isn't surprising since in many ways they mirrored each other. Both were extremely invested in discussing controversial topics, even if it made them look bad to outsiders. Both found themselves...
He looked at Destiny like Destiny was his father. If you go back and you go back on Destiny's channel and you listen to the conversations between him and Destiny, especially like the breakup conversation, Mrgirl literally sounds like his dad is telling him, listen, son, I'm going out to get milk and I'm not coming back. That's literally what he sounds like. It was bad. He literally kissed Destiny's ass. Welcome to Earth for 199. Drake and this guy needs to collab. Prison, bars. There you go. Thank you. Destiny needs to stop making terrible friends. It happens all the time and creates problems for everyone. True.
In very left-leaning circles, despite retaining views that could be seen as offensive by that demographic. And lastly, both got into controversy over statements made on the topic of pedophilia.
Oh, so I don't think any sort of mental illness should be demonized. The demonization of pedophiles in society is an incredibly negative thing, I would think. Pedophilia is very much a mental disorder. The more you stigmatize it, the less people seek treatment for it. So yeah, I absolutely think that it shouldn't be demonized.
I don't think there is any cure for it. If you think of children in that way, I think things should happen to you that I cannot say here on YouTube because I like my channel too much. Easy peasy. Easy peasy. If you look at children in that way, then things should happen to you that I cannot say on YouTube because I like my channel too much. Let your mind go wild with that one. Okay? Just saying.
For stigmatized.
Cool. Yeah. All in all, they were a match made in heaven, and to some extent, their audiences recognized it. Unlike most people Destiny debated, Mrgirl was the one person who shared his commitment to entertaining whatever opinions for the sake of argument. Whether that was a good thing or not, his audience definitely enjoyed watching it to the point that whenever Mrgirl got banned or suspended from a platform, many prominent figures in Destiny's fanbase ran to his rescue, defending him from ludicrous accusations.
Oh god. Okay, so this was the time period that I hated Stardust. Necromancer for 5. I think there's only so much joking or trolling about something for so long before it sounds less like jokes and trolling and more like the truth. Exactly. Necromancer, that's my whole point about everybody thinking that Mrgirl is a pedo. That is my point. However, there still is a problem there for me. Okay, so this is the time period I could not stand Stardust. When he got banned from Twitch, she literally, practically wrote a love letter to Twitch about why Mrgirl should be on the platform. And I was utterly disgusted by her on that. She struck a friendship with him. She would have him on. I could not stand Stardust at this point. We're cool now. I'm friends with her. You know, this is a past tense on how I felt about her. It's not current. Yeah, she had a weird phase. Yeah, that was the weird phase for Stardust, 100%.
And advocating for him.
Because the problem with Stardust is this, and I still kind of stand on this point with her sometimes. Stardust likes to be a contrarian. And being a contrarian will only take you so far. I'm going to be honest. I mean, listen, stick to your points. This is how you feel about something. If it's how you feel, it's how you feel. But I feel like the contrarian part in her played a part in the whole Mr. Girl thing. I really do.
To be reinstated. By all intents and purposes, Destiny was definitely responsible for giving Max a second wind to an online career that had been debilitated by
It is Destiny's fault Mr. Girl reached the status that he reached. It is 1000% Destiny's fault. I totally agree with that.
And purposes, Destiny was definitely responsible for giving Max a second wind to an online career that had been debilitated by suspension after suspension. For a brief period, this surge in popularity yielded a lot of golden moments.
I will slather diarrhea all over my face.
Children are slaves. Don't you think the country would be a better place if we took every disabled person and just killed them all?
No, I would hit my wife and then not apologize.
These weren't just of the funny variety either, as Max often succeeded in getting under people's skin and extracting unusual reactions from them, seemingly without even trying.
Left the door open and wide enough for you? You want to knock the whole wall down to make room for how mad you are?
But as it turned out, giving Max this second wind was a major mistake, as in late 2022, he turned against Destiny and his audience. As previously mentioned and reiterated by Destiny himself, the last ban Max suffered was on account of a mass flagging campaign coming from groypers. The thing is, these groypers only came into contact with Max because he started arguing with them over Destiny streams with Nick Fuentes. This, in turn, was recontextualized by Max.
Because a lot of people were upset that Destiny had Nick Fuentes on and went to have chicken and waffles with him. Like, people were high, especially on Twitch poll, there were a lot of people highly upset with Destiny over that. Like, they were super pissed at Destiny over that.
Max as if his deplatforming was the fault of Destiny and his community. He proceeded to go to war with Destiny's subreddit, to the point where he couldn't sleep for weeks.
A lot of that is because of your subreddit. You ban some criticism that you just don't like in your own subreddit because of how it makes you feel. Imagine how it would make you feel if you and anyone who agreed with you was banned from responding, and for periods of time you are the main topic of the subreddit. It's a really terrible feeling watching this story be told about you.
And obviously, I understand what this feels like, right? You certainly understand I know what this feels like. I've had plenty of stories of this movie before,
The point Max is making here is that since they were friends, he was hurt that Destiny didn't orient his subreddit's moderation to be more favorable toward him so as not to impact his career negatively.
His war with Destiny literally started with Destiny's Reddit. And he thought that his daddy needed to protect him. Literally. That's how his war with Destiny started. Because he didn't have a certain protection in that Reddit.
Meanwhile, Destiny argued that no one's well-being should depend on how other people's communities behave. For a guy who spent years upon years bragging about how easily he could push other people's buttons and how little he cared for the backlash, Max was weirdly sensitive to how other people talked about him. Once again, something was fundamentally shifting underneath Max's surface, as being online for too long had made him increasingly deranged. Soon after his declaration of war, he got into a Twitter squabble with a couple of other people in the Destiny-adjacent community. The reason why? They got mad at him for starting his stream with his pants hanging too low, which they said...
Okay, yeah, alright, so... This is actually one of the few times that Mr. Girl was right. Cherry, she's very crazy. She's crazy as hell. And Cherry and Stardust were friends. And, yeah, this didn't look good for Cherry or Stardust at all. And, yeah. They went too far with this. And it's a damn shame that I have to sit here and go, you know, Mr. Girl was right on this one. I hate having to say that, but he was.
Exposed his hair. Not the hair on his head. As much as it's a goofball move to get up in arms about this, there was already momentum and friction between him and the rest of Destiny's orbiters, meaning this just fanned the flames of the bridge burning between Mrgirl and the rest of the Destiny extended universe. His next brilliant move was to do an hour-and-a-half long stream on Twitter, where he aimed to expose Destiny for being exploitative and disrespectful to those who came on his stream. In actuality, all that Max had was a screenshot of Destiny exchanging lewd messages with Anna, a girl who is known to be a liar and generally unstable person. As if that was proof of, well, it's kind of hard to tell what this was supposed to prove. Max was grasping at anything he could do to squeeze every last drop of attention out of his association with Destiny.
It was crazy. It was crazy. He was literally messaging every single woman that ever showed up on Destiny streams. He was literally going back and messaging every single woman that ever showed up on Destiny stream to see if he can get something on Destiny. He was obsessed with getting Destiny for something. Okay, the cherry they're talking about here is not the same cherry with Xander Hall. They're two different cherries. Cherry with Xander Hall was cherry bread. She was like, she's a behind the scenes person. Whereas the cherry they're talking about, she was actually a content creator. It's two different cherries.
Proof. Max was grasping at anything he could do to squeeze every last drop of attention out of his association with Destiny. A small commentary channel named Nicholas Diorio butted into the drama, sharing new screenshots of Anna and Destiny talking, wherein she could be seen clearly stating she did not think she was being manipulated in any way. As a matter of fact, she claimed the opposite, that Max was the one being extremely manipulative, pressuring her into taking part in his expose. When responding—
Yeah, and that's when Max got Lav to go talk to Anna for his Destiny manifesto. Go talk to Anna, and Lav literally told Anna, I won't share this with anyone. I won't tell anyone. I won't tell anyone. Which ended up being a lie. And then Anna, as mentally disturbed as she is, okay, with the mental problems that she have, Anna ended up in a call with Max, Max's girlfriend, Lab, and herself. And they pressured her to give up all the stuff to Max.
According to Nick, Max claimed he only ever said that they were exchanging lewd messages and nothing more, right before he once again claimed that Destiny exploited her. This wasn't an expose as much as a straightforward smear attempt that failed to launch since Max didn't really have anything. Still, despite his one and only potential witness coming out and claiming the exact opposite of what he was alleging, Max didn't give up. If anything, this made him even more staunch in his battle. His usual apathetic affect gave way to a bitter and resentful tone, and he became unable to talk about anything besides this drama. And his tactics got increasingly shady, from blaming Destiny for his community's actions, to contacting past girlfriends of Destiny from over 7 years prior to see if they had anything scathing to say, only to come up with nothing. If anything, doing this called into question his own history with women, which is checkered to say the least. Back in the middle of 2022, Mrgirl released a video titled, You're My Real Doll.
Oh my God. Okay. This is where... Alright, so if you ever go back and you watch my live streams, you can see me in real time. I'm working a theory on what Mrgirl is. Okay? I leaned into the pedo stuff for a while, and then I switched it up. And a lot of it had to do... This video here, You're My Real Doll, just cemented my point about him. It really did. There was a conversation, there is a video out there of a conversation that Nicholas Diorio had with Mrgirl, and it was a 3-hour-long conversation. And in that conversation, I don't remember the exact words that Nick used, but in that conversation, he asked him basically, or made the statement, I think you're trolling. I think you're a big-ass troll. I think this whole thing about the pedos and the underage girls, I think you're trolling. And Mrgirl responded, no, everything I say is how I feel. In a sense. I don't remember the exact words he used, right? So I took it upon myself to go, well, then you know what, mofo? Everything you say, I'll run with it then. I'll run with it. Everything you say, I'll run with it. I've always, but I have maintained, I think Mrgirl was hiding in plain sight. And I honestly think that he was hiding behind everybody calling him a pedo because everybody noticed that part the most. But I think with Mrgirl, I think he's an abusive misogynist. And when I say misogynist, I mean a real misogynist. Not the misogynistic jokes, not the joking around. I honestly believe that's what he is. I think he's an abusive misogynist. I don't think Mr. Girl really is a pedo. I think he uses that to mask everything else because he knows people are going to stick to that point because you're dealing with kids at that point. I think that part of him is trolling. I have gone back and watched the videos with his girlfriend. I have gone back and watched his vlogs with his girlfriend. I think he is an abusive misogynist. I don't think he's a pedo. I really don't. I think he uses that to mask it. That's the conclusion I came to with Mr. Girl. And some people think I'm crazy because they still stick to the pedo stuff, which, you know what? Fair enough. If you want to walk around and think that Mr. Girl is a pedo, you know what? With all the crazy shit that he has said, and he's been on streams, other people's streams saying, and the examples he uses and what comes out of his mouth, I think you have every right in the world to think that way about him. I get it. And I'm not going to sit here and call you dumb. I'm not going to sit here and say, you're wrong for thinking that about Mr. Girl. No, not at all. Because listen, freedom of speech is a thing. I truly believe in freedom of speech. I feel like everybody should be able to say what they want to say at any time. But freedom of speech does not mean freedom from consequences. And if you ran around trolling, talking about underage girls and underage people in the manner in which you did, people thinking that you're a pedo is the consequence. You did it to yourself. You did it to yourself.
In which he talks to his girlfriend, Xylie, about something he did that upset her.
Okay, so you've been pretty upset with me for the last few days. Because I said that you were my sex doll.
This video was so gross. I hit the roof with this video. I remember Edwin was on Twitch, and Edwin and Nick decided they wanted to watch this video. And at the beginning of the video, when he bit into the orange and he started talking, they were laughing and giggling because they thought it was funny. Like, why would you bite into the orange like a psychopath? Why would you do that, right? And they were laughing and giggling at first, thinking it was funny what he was doing. But as the video went on, you literally heard them change their tone, and they were like, oh no, what is this? Like, they literally went from memeing it to going, oh my God, what are we watching? It was very profound. Yeah, as the video went on, they became more and more disturbed by the content. Yes, Rot, you remember. Yep.
This extremely bizarre setting, Xylie goes on to explain that he jumped into bed with her and said she was his doll, and when she objected to it, he insisted, which made her feel uncomfortable, and like she couldn't have any boundaries. For context, this interview took place after Max bought a human-sized doll to experiment how that could potentially change the dynamics of his relationship with Xylie. Max is laughing as she goes,
and by the way, FYI, that's the doll in the background right here. Every time you saw him, you saw the doll in the background
over the situation, and though Xylie does smile, it's very stilted and awkward. He then explains his perspective on it.
The implication is that I don't get to have any boundaries or set any limits.
It's not that you don't get to have any limits, it's that there's a limit to your limits.
Well, yeah. Come here, bud.
You have to have sex with me, so you can have boundaries.
She ain't got to do shit. Oh, God, I get heated! Oh, no, I'm not getting mad today. I'm just not in the mood to get mad today.
To a point. You can say no for a certain number of times.
From watching a lot of other Mr. Girl videos, it's possible to pick up that he's subtly framing the things he says.
Oh, Pizkey, she's not normal. She's not normal. No. She's not. But she is pretty. Xylie is pretty. She is a pretty woman.
for a certain number of times.
From watching a lot of other Mrgirl videos, it's possible to pick up that he's subtly framing the things he says as humorous by deliberately being over the top and creepy. However, as the video goes on, it becomes clear that he is completely serious.
You have to get me off.
Yeah, and that's fine, but...
No, you have to.
I know.
Okay.
But I just think that the implication of it is scary. Well, sex dolls get... They don't have any choice. They have no autonomy.
That's what I'm
they
saying.
just lie there.
Okay. I prefer it when you just lie there. Since you get upset when I tell you to just lie there and not move. And a doll's gonna do that anyway. It would be interesting to see what it's like for me to just f the doll. Because the doll always does what I want it to do.
Whatever aspects of this discussion that initially seem playful, like him cursing at her or telling her to shut up, begin showing themselves as not playful, but with intent. After minutes of Max repeatedly prodding her and insulting her, Xylie begins reacting in the same measure.
You're gonna put this in the video, and I feel uncomfortable because I'm already in a very uncomfortable position of like not wanting people to their relationship is abusive, but you're like berating me about asking you a question about you asking me to agree to sex on a regular basis and be a sex doll. I don't want to do this. I am quitting the interview, and I do not want any of this to be in the video.
What do you mean by push?
And he put it in the video. And this solidified, this video basically showed me that I was right in, I can't remember if it was my initial thought about him, but I was right about my theory. He's not a pedo. He is an abusive, misogynistic man. This video is so disturbing. It really is. The whole thing from beginning to end is disturbing. It's not a piece of art. I don't care what anybody says. This is not a piece of art. He might have the good angles, the camera, the music he had behind it, whatever. I don't give a shit. It was abusive.
Pushing your boundaries. It's not pushing your boundaries to ask you for something sexual. That's not pushing.
Asking me for something sexual on camera is pushing my boundaries. If I had known you were going to do that, I probably would have addressed that before we got on camera, but I didn't know you were going to do that.
The video ends with her breaking down in tears and cutting the conversation short.
The way you call, the way you make people, you make people think I'm abusive without saying the word abusive.
You make yourself abusive. How about one of those vlogs when you were literally driving in the car and you were like, yes, I hate women. You act like that. Why is it every time a woman makes you mad on a panel, you get ridiculously angry at the woman versus a man? You have mommy issues, bro. You have mommy issues. And if the shit really happened about your mom, which I don't know if I can take that serious because I don't know if that really happened. But if it did, you hate women. You hate them.
Or by doing anything explicit. It's a very subtle throwing under the bus, but it's happening. And I know it's happening.
I can't listen to you. I need to take a break.
Okay.
What would you diagnose him with? I don't diagnose people. I don't diagnose people, and I'm not going to sit here and diagnose people. Thank you for the $1.99. But what I will say is he's a sick. That's what I'll say. He's a sick.
Do you want to play Smash?
No, I just want to be alone.
This is possibly the most revealing thing that Max ever posted online.
Yep.
However much in his element he seems to be in his writing, videos, or music, it doesn't come close to painting as full a picture of who he actually is as when he's arguing with Xylie.
Yes.
And that picture looks grim. Interesting.
Oh my God, yes! Holy shit, yes! Oh my God, I'm sorry. Right take. Right take. Right take.
This is possibly the most revealing thing that Max ever posted online.
Period. Period. It literally, that video literally, if you took his whole work with his girlfriend, the vlogs, the COVID vlogs, the other videos he's done with her, and if you take all those together, it came together in that video. He is an abusive misogynist. He literally told her 2 weeks from his mouth, this came from his mouth. He literally told her in one of their vlogs, they were talking, he was interviewing her, talking or whatever. He literally told her 2 weeks into their 2 weeks into their relationship, she was starting to take, I want to say testosterone, because she wanted to be more ambiguous, right? Not ambiguous. What is the word I'm trying to use? She wasn't trans, but she went by they them, and she wanted to be, I guess, ambiguous. Yeah, she wanted to be more ambiguous and androgynous. Thank you. Yes, she wanted to be more androgynous, right? Yeah. And 2 weeks in, he told her, "You can't do that because your body belongs to mine, or to me. Your body belongs to me." What? What? Yeah. So that video literally just brought all the other videos together into this is what he is.
However much in his element he seems to be in his writing, videos, or music, it doesn't come close to painting as full a picture of who he actually is as when he's arguing with Xylie.
Yes.
And that picture looks grim. Interestingly enough, they both acknowledge that the way the conversation is going makes him look like an emotional manipulator. Coincidentally,
He is an emotional manipulator. He absolutely is. You see it every time he talks to her. Every video I have ever seen of those two, that's exactly what he looks like. He looks like an emotional manipulator, 100%.
an article on his Little Shame Lane blog from 2011, which was also an adult's toy review, Max wrote this. Hannah's mom freaked out. After reading my entire blog, she brought it to a battered women's shelter, where the workers looked over it and told her I am textbook abusive. Then she called all of Hannah's friends and told them to help her make Hannah break up with me. But enough about Hannah's mom. Let's talk about the Monique Alexander realistic fleshlight. I have to say here that they did not break up, as she eventually went on to marry this guy for reasons I cannot comprehend. Regardless, it is noteworthy that Max has been under suspicion of mistreating his partners far before he ever got with Xylie. However, I need to note here that these kinds of interactions between them were so common that people made entire compilations out of Mrgirl's mistreatment of Xylie.
That's a stupid question and should tell you that what you need to do is talk about your feelings, not ask more dumb.
I understand that you have some other retarded argument you want to make that has nothing to do with that. That's not why I'm screaming at you.
It's horrible for me because, like, I already feel bad about it. Like, why would you do that? I mean, I know why, because you explained it to me, but it's horrible.
I assume Xylie eventually changed her mind about not wanting the interview to be part of this video, because if that's not the case, then he ultimately did violate her boundaries by posting it. Despite all of this, they're still together.
He doesn't understand boundaries. You know what his boundaries are? What he thinks. That's it. Mrgirl it's all about him and his boundaries. He doesn't give a shit about anybody else. He only thinks about himself. You should have seen the whole arc between Lav calling him daddy and him and his girlfriend adopted Lav and they were her parents. That was a creepy arc. That was like, girl, what are you doing? Yeah, it was so weird.
Together to this day, with Xylie largely supporting his crusade against Destiny, which a lot of people chalk up to some form of Stockholm Syndrome. After Max messaged every single girl Destiny followed on Instagram, and even resorted to reaching out to other orbiters he'd previously beefed with to try and scramble for any source of dirt he could get, in March of 2023, he released an article with over 100,000 words on Destiny.
That was the Destiny Manifesto, and the reason why I call it the Destiny Manifesto, because he desperately didn't want people to call it a manifesto. So, naturally, being the asshole that I am, I called it a manifesto.
In March of 2023, he released an article with over 100,000 words on Destiny. Unsurprisingly, it had no measurable effect, as it just rehashed things he'd previously said and were far from being secrets in the first place, or were simply gigantic stretches about how Destiny having people argue against each other on his stream was a kind of gladiatorial match. Regardless of whether Destiny and his community are overall good or bad entities, it's clear that this was motivated by an obsessive vendetta over their personal issues with each other. Fortunately, this effectively closed the chapter on their public spat, and only after this came out did Max move on, but not to better things. In the same month as his article came out, Max was interviewed about his latest online activity, and the topic of his ex-wife was brought up. Specifically, he was asked about having posted nude images of his ex-wife, Hannah, online in the context of whether that constituted revenge or not, which he had a very tough time answering. Given that they're now divorced, I'm not so sure she's okay with it, but then again, not that much is known about their relationship. Now that his war effort against Destiny had reached its uneventful end, Max could go back to talking about what he really finds interesting.
And you know what happened to him? He fell off. And that's why I stopped talking about him. Because that manifesto, people looked at it and scoffed. There was no details in it that anybody really cared about. There might have been one or two that people kind of piqued their interest, but overall, people didn't give a shit, and he fell off. He thought this was going to be his way to get back on top and to use Destiny to do it, and it backfired on him. It completely backfired on him. Yeah, exactly, and Stan. Yeah, you remember. A lot of it was, yeah, we know. Moving on. Exactly. Exactly.
In August of 2023, he posted an article titled, "People Shouldn't Go to Jail for Looking at CP." In it, he says, "I enjoy cranking it to Cardi B music videos, cartoons about incest, and stories about men being violated by their mothers. I also used to watch real adult films, but 6 months ago, I stopped. I believe the financial incentives and pressures involved in it make it so the performers can't truly consent. I say this as someone who has been in front of the camera a few times myself. If we get universal basic income someday, and I know the performers are not choosing between homelessness or butt stuff, I'll start watching real stuff again. I do wonder, though, if I were a PDF file, would I look at CP? Oh yeah. I wouldn't be able to stop myself, partly because I'd have no other outlet for my urges, but
so now he's trying to, oh God, this man is so infuriating. He's so infuriating.
also because merely looking at CP is ultimately a victimless crime. This may seem like just another thought experiment, but to Max, this isn't a hypothetical whatsoever, as his participation in this stream heavily suggests.
Have you ever looked at... I need you to answer the question.
Oh, this was amazing. Oh my God, this was so good. This was so good when he went on Drunken Peasants.
Patient in this stream heavily suggests.
Have you ever looked at... I need you to answer the question honestly, or leave. Yeah.
Okay, so I should just leave.
Have you ever looked at...
I don't think I have.
Yeah, I don't think he's gonna indulge that.
Mind you, a month before this article, he made a review of the movie Sound of Freedom, which is ostensibly about a US government agent who hunts down human traffickers. Despite being produced by a relatively small studio, the movie was highly successful at the box office and went on to be very well liked by audiences. Of course, Max saw it differently. In his review, he said, "The Sound of Freedom panders to our collective delusion that CSA can be stopped with violence, that you can out-violence the violence. I should disclose here that I strongly dislike Donald Trump. I find the QAnon, conspiratorial, anti-pedo, anti-Jew shit among his supporters very disconcerting, and it all looks to me like an excuse to join an insane cult so you don't have to deal with complex problems in the real world. I voted for Biden because I think Trump doesn't respect the rule of law and has no morals. However, Biden has sniffed, kissed, and fondled too many children in public to stay in my good graces. I think he is a creep who has, at best, been inappropriate with kids. In private, the truth is probably worse. Common things being common." While Max is just addressing how the movie became politicized, so it's not completely out of place, it's strange that he simultaneously says he voted for Biden and that he believes Biden is a creep. Usually, those two things are mutually exclusive and cancel each other out. In another section of this article, he speaks about the personal experiences he had with people he knew who would suffer this kind of thing, noting that their families usually ignored or pretended it didn't happen.
Wood chipper. You touch a child, you even think about a child in that way. Wood chipper. I mean, it really is simple. Wood chipper.
Which he interprets as the default reaction, and even gives it some degree of justification. However, there is an alternative explanation that presents itself once you factor in that multiple of the examples Max gives are girls he dated. It could just be that girls who are neglected by their families are overrepresented in Max's dating history. This isn't to say that cases like that don't exist, but Max's perspective could definitely be skewed here. Before he closes the review, he says that the movie is homophobic and refers to one of the children who were trafficked as attractive. I'm obviously singling out the most inflammatory things he said here, but again, it's his intent to be inflammatory and say these things.
Yes.
I'm just documenting it. In September...
I'm sorry. I think he hides behind all that. I'm sorry. I do. I don't... Listen, if it ever comes out that he is a pedo, then okay. I guess I was wrong. But I really don't think he is. I think he hides behind it. Because he knows saying the shit that he does about kids is what's going to get him the attention. I really do believe that. I believe that in my heart. I think he says that shit just to get the attention. And it's gross. And you know what? People, you're not wrong if you think he is because of the shit he says. It's not one of those situations where I think people are dumb who call him that. No, I don't think they're dumb at all. Look at the shit that he said throughout the years. I get it. I don't blame you for saying that. But I really don't think he is. I think he uses that for attention, but when in actuality, I think he's an abusive, misogynistic piece of shit. Yeah, exactly, Nuke. The bar is so low for Max. Exactly. He creates the bar of him being a pedo, right? That you're not going to worry about what he does with the adult women. You're more worried about the kids. And I think he hides in plain sight. He hides in plain sight with that pedo shit.
September of 2023, he was banned from YouTube once again for violating the child safety policy of the TOS. Whatever momentum he had built up from his songs and his association with Destiny that could establish him as a content creator was on his deathbed. In April, he made a hardcore pivot and rebrand, creating a TikTok account called Observer Physics, where he supposedly was going to focus exclusively on subjects like astronomy and astrophysics. But he was apparently banned from r/physics for claiming to make grandiose discoveries in the field without backing his claims up whatsoever. Additionally, he claimed—
Oh darn, he got banned from something else. Oh no. Oh no! Freedom of speech! Oh no! Meowser for 5. I think his relationship with Lab gave a solid indicator on how he begins his pattern of abuse. He presents himself as an ally or a safe person first. Yes, he does. He does present himself as an ally when in fact he is not. That's exactly what he does. He tells people I am safe when in fact he actually is not. And if you're easy to fall for bullshit, then he can get his claws in because he knows what to say.
Claimed to have debunked a discovery made by Albert Einstein, which is just really funny. It was alleged that Max was trying to get legitimate academics to visit his live stream to discuss his ideas, but he couldn't contain himself, getting into fights with them in emails before the streams could happen. As of the writing of this video, there are only 2 uploads to his TikTok, and though they were successful, it seems he's abandoned this project. I hope it comes back though. I'm excited for Mrgirl's Time Cube and Terry Davis arc. If he doesn't do it himself, one of his sycophantic followers who imitate him online, because yes, these people exist, will—
Oh my god, there are so many Mrgirl clones. Ugh. I don't get it. I really don't get it. I really, really don't get it. But hey, everybody has stands. So, I mean, it is what it is, I guess.
will probably do it before he can. Besides his physics side projects, in July 2024, Max dropped an EP titled The Blackface, where he raps alongside a black version of himself using an AI voice. The track list includes songs such as one of the good ones, Some of My Best Friends Are Black, and most importantly, Shake Your Flaps. One of the latest developments for Max is that he announced he was working on putting together a documentary. Care to guess what it's about?
Is about child sexual abuse.
What a topic to become a one-trick pony about. Also in July—
That's literally it. I think Tom summed that up perfectly.
Shake Your Flaps. One of the latest developments for Max is that he announced he was working on putting together a documentary. Care to guess what it's about?
Is about child.
What a topic to become a one-trick pony about.
That's exactly it. He's a one-trick pony. And his one-trick pony is about, like, child exploitation, about basically saying pedo stuff. Because he knows that's what will get him the attention. But eventually, people are going to be like, bro, you're just saying this shit to get attention. We're done with you. We're done with you. And that's why after the Destiny Manifesto, I really haven't talked about him until now. Because Tom put this video out. Honestly. He's a one-trick pony. And I don't think people hone in on the real problem with Mrgirl. And after 15 live streams, I'm done. Well, 16 now. I'm done. I'm done. Because I think people are honing in on the wrong thing. Yeah, the boy who cried pedophilia. Yes.
Also in July of 2024, he wrote a Substack article about Dr. K from the YouTube channel Healthy Gamer GG, whom he'd been calling out for allegedly mishandling a therapy case in 2020 that's related to a person's death. However, due to how little this case has to do with Mrgirl directly, besides the fact that it's extremely complicated and to some extent a legal issue to tackle, I'll refrain from going too deep here. Since this announcement, things became quiet as far as controversy went, but it's only a matter of time until he gets another 15 minutes for saying something creepy, or Shaylin leaves him and drops an hour-long video explaining how evil he is or something.
Wouldn't it be amazing if Shaylin did drop a video on him? It would be amazing that if they broke up, Shaylin's going to be like, okay, I'm going to let y'all know how it was. Oh my God. And then you know what I get to do? I get to stand on my soapbox and point at everybody and say, I told you so. I will have my Tommy C moment if that ever happens. I really will. That will be my Tommy C moment. If it ever happens. I doubt it will. I doubt it will.
Until then, I've been Turkey Tom. Thanks for watching, and until next time, leave me alone.
There you go. Yeah, Mrgirl is just, he's gross.